Alright guys, this video guide is a preview of what you can get from the membership area, where you will access all of these kind of resources of video guides in the dry, video guides in the wet of specific tracks. In this case, we're looking at Lonato. We're looking at some of the lines, the best lines to take in the wet, but I will not obviously show everything. Here is what we can see from a really good driver in the wet here. Lonato is doing a very good job. We will have a look at the few corners, and obviously if you enjoy that, then you can get access to the full guide with each corner looked at in particular detail. All right, so having said that, let's get started. We are at turn number 2 at bar corner. You can see very hard on the brakes, trying to avoid the rubber on the brakes a little bit. You can see it's turning slightly off the rubber, which is very good, I would say, because it allows you to keep a little bit of distance from the white line, but that's not the goal. The goal is to, like he's doing, to go in diagonal, because here there's the rubber from the dry. Okay, you want to avoid this rubber as much as possible, and it's about the car length that you need that to attack the brakes as sharply as he's doing. So you can see you want to avoid this in the wet. In the dry, obviously you want to use everything. Actually, you want to be even over the curb, okay, because it allows you to open up the corner there. But in the wet, it's actually not so good. Obviously, it depends from time to time. Sometimes there's no grip on the track in terms of no rubber, so you can stay even closer, like you can stay a little bit more like that. All right, you don't have to stay so not so much, but so much in the middle. You can stay a little bit more to the left. In this case, we don't have to, because it's perfect what he's doing. So let's play it along. You can see he's holding the brakes all the way until he stops. So he's mashing the brakes, slightly locking them, if you hear back in the video, slightly locking them, and all the way until here is holding the brakes. Otherwise, he's going to overshoot the corner. So I actually really like this corner. Let's continue. Let's play it along. You see he's locking the tires, and he's still holding. This is the crossover. So here's where he's crossing over the rubber. You can see it's getting darker here. You see it's a little bit darker in this area. So he's crossing over, so he's gonna be a bit slippery. But he has to hold on to the brakes. And look, he has almost maximum steering lock, starting to use his body as well. Now he's getting on the gas, and when he gets on the gas, you see he has a little bit of power oversteer. But it's fine because it pushes him wide here over the paint. Now, normally the paint is not good to use in the wet. Normally it's very slippery, but look, actually it's very clever what he does. And I was very pleased to see that he found this line. He's not doing the common line, which is like going here over the white line and just like stay there. He's actually doing this very interesting thing, that he's basically picking up the gas very early and he's pushing wide here. Okay, this is where he's pushing wide. And he's then going over this curb, and then look, he's using this curb and then avoiding the big curve that we all know Lonato is very bad. There's this big sausage curb here. He's then avoiding that so that he doesn't fly into the air. And but you can see the good thing about that is that, yes, even though he's on the paint, which is, let's say, a negative thing, let's say this is a minus, all right, but the plus is that he has basically no rubber here, whereas here there is the rubber. So here's a minus for the rubber, okay, but it's a plus because we have no paint. But in this case, to be honest, I believe it's better to go over the paint than on the rubber, because you have more grip in the wet. Okay, for some reason it's working very well. And not only that, but he was also, so the other plus is not only that he has no rubber, but he's able to actually get on the gas earlier. Okay, so he has a wider corner, all right, whereas here is the minus because we are basically using less track. So we're making the corner less wide. In this case, it works really well. Because he gets such a good exit, at this point, he will have a lot of limiter. You will listen the engine limiting like, because he's doing such a good corner here, carrying so much speed that when he comes up to here, all right, he will be so quick. So let's now play it, and you hear what I'm saying. All right, let's play along. See, he's avoiding the big curve, which is about here. You see that? It's very important that you avoid this big curve. It's like flat, and then here it becomes massive. It goes up. Okay, so you don't want to hit it. Okay, obviously if you hit a bit, it's not like you crash, but it's making you lose time. Okay, so try to come out of it. All right, it's very important. Let's play along. Listen to the RPM. Did you hear that? Let me play it along. Actually, let me increase the sound so you can hear it more. Listen. He hits the limiter for like 15-20 meters. It's because he's carries so much speed on the exit from the corner before that it's giving him so much speed. And look what he's doing. Now this is very important. All right, this is very important. You see that this is the whole track. Let's say. You see, this is where you typically brake in the dry. So this is where you brake. This is like in this area. So you're following the rubber line. I'm just following the track. Okay, this is where there is a rubber. All right, so that's where the rubber is, which you don't want to brake there in the wet. Why? Because we know that if you watched also my previous video about wet driving and techniques, also data analysis, you have no grip here. It's like a soap. It's sliding. All right, it's very slippery. So what you want to do instead is to make what we call a diagonal corner. Because look, we have three options. Either you brake on the rubber and you just follow it, and you just have to brake so early and so soft to avoid spinning. Because if you brake here, if you brake here, you can still do it, but you have to brake so soft and you have to brake so early for that, because you cannot attack the brakes. It's just like if you hit the brakes hard, you just spin, or you just lose so much grip there. So there's two other ways. The second way, so the first way is to do, let's say the first way is A, you just go over the rubber, you just brake and you go straight there. Okay, just follow that straight line. Second line, okay, let's say we just brake on the inside and we just point at the apex. Okay, so that's B. Now I will want to ask you, the third line is to brake on the inside, middle to inside, let's say 3/4 to middle, and do the diagonal like that. Let's see. Which one do you think is the most efficient one? I hope you replied answer C. Why? Because think about it, the yellow, the yellow is basically avoiding the rubber, it's avoiding the rubber like the blue. Even though remember, at some point you will always have to cross the rubber. And let's say in this point, at the end of the braking, you will have to cross the rubber there. And at the end of the braking, you will have to cross the rubber there. Here you're on the rubber all the way through, but here you still have to get at the rubber at some point. You just cannot fly over the rubber, okay? Can't skip it. So point being is that you obviously want to avoid the rubber as much as possible, but you want at the same time to open up and make a big radius. Look, the radius of the corner here is very small. Like what he was gonna do here is a very small radius, whereas this guy is gonna make a much bigger radius. So who do you think is going to have better? Who do you think is going to have a better minimum speed? Well, obviously the blue. So out of the three lines, yes, this one and this one, they are going to avoid the rubber. But I believe the yellow one is going to be so slow, because you will basically cut here and you will have so much less speed here, because your radius is so small that it doesn't work. So the one to do is blue, 100% the winner. Okay, so remember, brake really hard, smash the brakes here on the wet. You have to do it exactly like the dry. And you want to stop as efficiently as possible. And let's play along the video. Bam! You see he's holding the brakes up until here. Here's the exact, in this exact point there is the crossover. Here is the crossover. So that, remember the dotted, remember the circle we made before, that we said, okay, at some point you're gonna cross. Here's where he's crossing the line, okay? Because here underneath is go-kart, here there is rubber, okay? There is rubber here. Why? Because we're basically crossing the dry line. And then look, the dry line will be this. You basically turn in and go for the apex and then go for the exit. So now we're crossing this. So this is the only spot where we're sliding around. So if I actually play this video back a little bit, you will hear what I am saying. See, he's holding. He's like slightly sliding. Like he's like locking, controlling the lock. And then after he crossed the crossover, Okay, I know it's a bit of a yeah, you see, after he crossed the crossover, it's basically holding the brake still, and he's maximum lock. Look at this, it's almost maximum lock. You see his steering wheel, it's completely trying to turn to the right, because obviously he's trying to avoid this paint. Because what happens if you brake hard and late but you go over the paint, you're screwed. I mean, you know it here in Lonato or whatever, anywhere. Like, you can get a little bit of paint on the butt in some places. I don't know why, honestly. In this corner, it's so much more slippery, the paint, than in the previous corner. Remember the previous corner on the exit, he's going over the paint and he's fine. But here, for some reason, it's so much worse. Like, I show you. You have to go all the way. Look, he's on the edge of going there. So it's actually almost spot on. So let me delete that and I draw it again. So you need to avoid this bit. Obviously, it doesn't mean you have to drive so much under the limit to avoid that. It doesn't mean you have to stay, but it means you have to push like crazy. You have to push like crazy, but try to keep like a little bit of margin there all the way from that. So like this is the margin, let's say, from the paint, a little bit of margin from the paint to where your line is, so that even if you make a mistake, you, instead of ending over the paint, you will end up like on the white line or something like that, even though the white line is still going to be slippery. So in this case, he does do a good job. He does a good job because he obviously keep a little bit of gap, which is good. All right, it's good that he keeps a little bit of gap. And look, by the way, when he picks up the throttle, you hear that he's getting a little bit of oversteer. Listen, but that's good because you have maximum lock. I believe maybe we went slightly bit too early on the gas, like slightly, and because he had a lot maximum lock, he'd get a little bit of oversteer, but it's fine, you know. It's good because he opens up the corner. He actually makes the car rotate. But to be honest, it's the reason why I say it's too early, the throttle pickup, because by doing so, by going on the gas so early and so obviously so sharply, look, he was a little bit impatient here. If he just waited a bit more, but listen, this was actually a very good lap, but it could have been better. You see, he was not getting a perfect traction. And look, with the front wheel is not over the paint. You know, with the front wheel, let's remove everything. With the front wheel is actually on the white line, which is perfect. Let's say okay, which is almost perfect. But the rear wheel, you cannot see it, but the rear wheel is for sure over the paint, which doesn't give him the perfect traction. In this case, he's losing a bit of time here. So obviously, it would have been better if he just waited like a fraction of a second to go a bit later on the gas, and then he would have had a much clearer exit. But still, it was a great lap, so there's not too much to comment about it. Obviously, when you're pushing on the limit, this kind of things happen, but it was very good overall. And look, now he's going to cross over the rubber again. So because he has a very good angle on the exit, because he's done a good job in the entry and the braking, now he's going to cross over all of the rubber here. There's rubber here, there's a bunch of rubber here as well there. Okay, so this is the area where it needs to be a little bit smooth with the throttle. Sometimes it requires you to go full gas early on in the corner. Then when you join the either a big puddle, like if you have a lot of water, if there's like standing water, either you have to come off a bit of the gas, so like 80% from 100 to 80 a bit, to avoid having too much wheel spin, or it's because you cross over the rubber and it makes it so slippery, so you have to go from 100 to 80, but this is for a fraction of a second. It's like you're doing like a traction control with your pedals. Okay, so it's like you're doing traction control with your pedals, and you hear the RPMs here when you start to get a little bit oversteer. But obviously, if it's not too much, say full throttle, just keep it flat. But you hear that, it's where it gets a bit on the edge. Let's watch one more corner. And then I repeat, you can get access to all of these in the membership area, all right? Accessing the guides, all right? So again, here is braking. This is the only place is crossing over the rubber in the entry. So here's crossing the rubber because let's say this is the line that we want to do in the dry. Not perfect, but okay, actually let me redraw it. This is the line we're doing on the dry. So this is the area where we are crossing over, because then look at his line. His line is going to go like straight here and then turning wide there. like something like that, straight and turning there. So he's like keeping it wide. So this is the only area where we're a little bit loose, let's say. We're a little bit struggling with the grip. Obviously we are over the slippery part, but you have to keep the confidence and hold the brakes and brake late and hard, because you want to make sure you stop early on for this corner. Okay, ideally when there's a lot of grip here for some reason, like when there's the wet tires are working and it's fast, like in the wet, you can even go with like little brakes to no brakes and try to just brake with the steering, like you just come and you just brake with the steering by going wide. I remember like I used to do it, and it used to work. I mean, it obviously depends on the condition, but it can work. And I feel like if there's not so much, if there's a lot of grip on the track, or the track is slightly drying up, you can just go in with less brakes and send it. But if it's wet and you have to stop, you have to then brake hard and brake late. So let it play along. You see, it's just carrying also a lot of speed there, and it's boom. Here you cannot see the steering wheel, unfortunately, but it's like boom, is maximum lock here. It is steering wheel. Let's say make this a steering wheel. Okay. Actually, this is supposed to be oh my god, my drawings are so bad. So let's pretend this is a steering wheel. Okay, his steering wheel is full lock to the left. Okay, and he's also working with his body to put maximum turning effort as possible. Then he picks back the throttle. Again, here he's trying to avoid the rubber. Okay, we're so close to the curb here, which by the way, we're not there in the dry. I mean, if you guys have ever been here in Lonato in the dry, this is the line like for most of the categories. Here's the second apex, can't see very well. But typically most of the categories want to be in the middle of the track, middle to maximum 3/4. So let's say from here to like here, that's where they want to be. Okay, it's very rare to see drivers going over here. Typically, if you made a mistake, you go over here. As I said, it depends on the categories, on the grip level. So let's say this is our place where there is all the grip, like where it's all slippery in the wet. So you see he's cleverly avoiding it, and you see he's like almost touching the curb, which you never do that in the dry, as I said, but he's very close to the curb. He's not touching it, he's very close to it. It's almost on the white line. And he goes on. Now he puts again maximum lock to left, like he just comes off the gas. I don't think he brakes, or if anything has a very small tap to put the rotation. And he's like pump, turns it, and then he gets on the gas again. Look here, you can see there's a darker part. Let me delete this, but you can see here's the darker part again. You see this is where the grip is, and to be honest, on the exit you want to go quite wide here in the dry, so it gets quite slippery on the exit. So here's when his crossover is going to be at about this point. So like now he's still off the rubber, but at some point he will like when he will do his line here, he will cross the rubber. So there he's gonna become a bit slippery, and he will need to make sure he controls it. Did you hear that? You didn't hear a lot of rev limiter. You didn't, sorry, not limiter, like our rev like wheel spin, because actually this has been one full day of driving in the wet. So I think the track cleaned up a bit, so there was not so much rubber left in the track. But in a normal day where there's very slippery because there's a lot of rubber and it starts to rain, then this would get a lot more loose, a lot more slippery. And then obviously slightly touch the curve there. There's still a little bit of puddles, but yeah. So I hope this guys helped you in some way. We have a full guide, as I said, in the membership area, and I believe this is very important to have a look at all of these lines and breaking down exactly where you should go, or what kind of line. Obviously you need to be adaptable. Remember, in the wet, adaptability is key, guys. Like, you cannot say, oh, but you know, Alessio told me that, you know, I need to go exactly in this point, therefore that's what I did it. So if I'm not fast, you know, the coaching was wrong. Now listen, in the wet you need to have a baseline from where to start in terms of idea of what to do, but then it's your adaptability that makes a difference. Literally, if you are adaptable, that's when you're fast. If you're not adaptable and you keep doing the same things over and over again and track changes, you're gonna be slow. So I see that the best kids have a lot of adaptability, and the kids that struggle the most are the ones that have the least amount of adaptability. So I mean, you don't buy adaptability, you need to work for it. You need to be proactive, you need to go and try different lines. Obviously, when it's full wet, it's, you know, those the good lines are the good lines. You know, you don't have to change, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But obviously, when it dries up a little bit, it's not like dry, or it's not like off dry. It's like when it's a little bit drying out, there's like less water. You need to try a few things there. But typically, you know, you have to be very clever and use your eyes to spot what the others are doing on the track, so that if they're doing something just going well, if that's working for them, you try, and if it works for you, just keep it. It's like a brick wall. Okay, you try that corner in that way, it works. Okay, then I keep it. I try the next corner now, I keep it. I keep it. You don't then next lap do everything randomly. No, that's completely bad. You need to have memory and put those kind of things you learn in the back of your mind, and then try again in the next corner to do something different. And when you find the thing that work, because you need to do like your own telemetry. This is what I like it. It's like you need to be your own telemetry system. You need to feel, okay, this lap I did this, I clearly gained time from the guy in front, therefore it works. The next lap, oh, I did this, actually I lost so much time. It's not the engine, it's not the chassis, that was just me doing a bad line. Therefore the next lap I shouldn't do it anymore, I should do something else. So this is what I talk about being your telemetry system, in sometimes even using your dash to see the sectors, etc. I mean, we have all we're gonna talk this in further videos. So guys, I hope that was helpful. If you need the full guide, just access the membership. All right, we'll see you in the next video.